Hello students, we're going to be looking at the structure inside a flower today. It's got many remarkable features and I'm going to be inviting you to draw it as well, so you'll need a sharp pencil. So what I've got on the screen today is a tulip, but it's far from its best. It's flowered beautifully in my garden and really it definitely passed its best. So there are various structures that you'll be able to see. Clearly, I think the most obvious structure is the petals, but I've taken some petals off that would be here so that I could look inside. Now, this kind of plant, or this kind of flower, has male and female parts as well. The male part is this here, and this part on top. Now, this is called the filament, and the part on top is called the anther, and you can see, just about see the yellow pollen that remains there. The female part of the flower is this part, and it's made up of 3 bits, but we can only see 2 at the moment. We've got the top part where pollen can land called a stigma, and that's sticky, so I always think of it as being a sticky stigma. We've then got the style here, and at the bottom, which I'll show you on another flower in a moment, we have an ovary. Now those 3 parts together are called the carpel. What we're going to do now is have a go at drawing this. Now, in science, we always draw 2-dimensional structures. I know some of you are absolutely amazing artists, but we'll leave that to your art books if that's all right. So I'm going to try drawing this. I am not the world's greatest artist, so I shall do my best. I'm going to start off with the female part of the flower. I'm observing very carefully. I can see that it sort of comes out at the top. And I'll often go quiet when I draw because I think I need the extra bit of concentration. Now, it's not perfect. I know it's not perfect. Like I said, I am not the world's greatest artist, but I will give everything a go. And that's me putting the stem on. And that's my cat complaining about me working again. Now we're going to add some of the male parts, the stamens. So you can see that they attach right at the base. And the first part, the filament, goes about halfway up. Now where does the anther come to? It just about reaches the top, doesn't it? So again, I'm looking very carefully at the shapes. It's a sort of oval, isn't it? There's dips in it, which I'll try and indicate. So I think that will be the best I can manage. Now I can see another one on the other side. There we go. They're a beautiful bright yellow. Now that's another thing in science a lot of people get annoyed with me about, is that we don't add colour to our diagrams. But what we will do is annotate our diagram and we'll make a note about the colour then. Now the final thing I'd like to add would be the petals, which I can only sort of see sideways on here. So I'll try and draw that in there. I think that's the best I'm going to do with my petal for now. So on to some labels. So we'll start off with the male parts. The top is called the anther. And that's where we will find pollen. And in this case, that's a dark brown. So I'm going to make a note of that as well. Then that is attached to the filament. That's what holds it up. And in this case, that is a bright yellow, very distinctive. So those 2 parts together make up the male part of the flower. So together, they are called the stamen. We've got the stem here to hold the flower upright. We've got a petal. Many flowers have coloured petals to attract insects to them. Some don't. The ones that don't are often pollinated by the wind. And then we have the female part of the flower, which is right in the centre of the flower. So at the top, we have the part called the stigma. And I noted earlier that that's often sticky. And the job of the stigma is to catch pollen. Then beneath that, we have the tube it sits on called the style. And there's a bit at the bottom we can't see, but if we could see in here, we would have an ovary. Now, we've met that before when we've talked about human reproduction, and that is the same place that the plant stores its eggs as well. So that gives you a really good idea of the anatomy of a flower. I'd like you, please, to have a go at that as well if you've got a flower in the garden. You'll need something that looks like this, where you can see the anthers, where you can see the carpels as well. Oh, that's the other thing, isn't it? So the female part is called the carpel. And this, the stamen, was the male part. I think it's very convenient that that has men at the end, because that's an easy way of remembering that it's the male part. Now, I've been to the garden and grabbed a couple of other flowers just to show you a flower that's actually got the ovary in it. So I'll pop this on the screen. I'll move the tulip out. So this is a little primrose. And if I part at the bottom here, we can see that now it's not that clear, but here is the stigma and the style, which are very low down in the tube. But at the bottom, oh, hold that open, we've got the ovary just there, full of eggs. Now, when the pollen actually gets to the stigma, it will travel down the tube all the way down to this ovary. And as those eggs mature and ripen, once they've been fertilised, they develop into the seeds, and the ovary itself becomes a fruit. I know we think about that in terms of maybe trees like apple and pear, but that's true of all flowering plants as well.